Hello, good morning, and welcome to a typical Monday in my life as a Foundation Year 1 doctor who is currently on my Paediatrics rotation. I thought I'd make this video as a bit of documentation for me to look back on at a future point in my life, and also as an informative video for anyone who is curious about what a career in medicine looks like in the UK as a junior doctor. So without further ado, here we go. So my alarm goes off at 6:15 every weekday morning. A lot of the time I do press the snooze button at least once, but I'm trying to get into a good routine and make the most of my morning hours because, as you will soon see, I always try and cram in as much as I can into every single day and never seem to have enough time. So once I'm up, I make my bed because it removes the temptation I have to jump back into bed and scroll through social media. And in replacement of the time I used to spend scrolling through TikTok or Instagram, I have been trying to do some mindfulness. So I use the Headspace app, and I do pay for the premium version, and I personally think it's so worth it because it just gets me into a really good, grounded, peaceful frame of mind for the rest of the day. They have a set morning routine for you to go through, as well as some gorgeous videos and exercises. This video is not sponsored, I wish. And to be completely honest, ever since I started working, I noticed that I have been getting slightly more and more bouts of anxiety, and the days that I start with mindfulness are definitely better than the days that I don't, so would highly recommend. At this point, it's just after 6:30 a.m. and I start to get ready. Most of the days it's either minimal makeup or absolutely no makeup at all, because, as I think everyone knows now because of COVID, masks plus heavy cakey makeup are just not the one. It's 7 a.m. now, and I had originally planned to spend some time planning and creating content for my podcast and YouTube channel, but then I remembered that I had some final year medical students coming up to the ward this afternoon that I had agreed to help prepare for their practical exams, and as I didn't go to the local medical school, I spent the next half an hour of my morning familiarising myself with their curriculum and going over my old notes from medical school to try and prepare for our session. So it's 7:30 a.m. right now. I've got a 45-minute drive into work. I've got my bags and my lunch prepped from the night before, and as I drive in, future me is going to do a lovely voiceover talking about a career in medicine. Let's go. So this is me on my drive along mainly motorways to work. If you see me vibing to Taylor Swift's new album, don't judge me. Anyway, I thought I'd use this time to explain how junior doctor training works in the UK, because to be quite honest, it's not something I fully understood until my final year of medical school when I was actually applying for posts. So, here's how it works. Once you're done with your 5 years in medical school, you have to do a 2-year training program within the NHS called the Foundation Program, and that's split into Foundation Year 1 and Foundation Year 2, which you are paid a salary for. At this point, I will note that this is the traditional way into becoming a doctor, and there are quite a few alternatives. I, for example, did a year of biomedical sciences before medical school, and if people want a video on some of the different pathways into medicine, I'm happy to do that. Anyway, back to the main topic. So, during each year of the foundation program, you have to rotate through 3 specialities, and so you spend 4 months on each placement. At the moment, I'm on Paediatrics, and I'm coming towards the end of that 4 months. The other specialities that I will go on to do are breast surgery, diabetes and endocrinology, obstetrics and gynecology, haematology, and microbiology. So when you apply for your job in your final year of medical school, each job technically has 6 mini jobs within that posting, and you don't really get to pick and choose which specialities make up your job. They come as a preset pack by the hospitals. but you can apply for a post or a job that has the combination of specialities that appeal to you. So for example, for me, I knew that I really wanted to do pediatrics and obstetrics and gynecology. So I preferentially applied for the jobs that had at least those two and a combination of other jobs that I would find interesting. The process of getting a foundation post is very long-winded and beyond the scope of this video. But a simple summary of it is that you pick a location you want to work in, and you are ranked against every medical student in the country, as well as any international trainees who are applying for foundation training posts. Once you've got a place in that region, you can apply for a job you want, which again is done by a ranking system. Generally speaking, the government caps the number of medical school places that there are, so that there are enough jobs for every single medical student to become a doctor if they pass. The main issue is competition from international students, as well as location. Some locations are far more competitive than others, so even though you might get a job, you might not necessarily be in the region that you wanted. And so during your foundation training, you don't have any exams. Instead, you have competencies, and these are tasks and skills that the General Medical Council, the overseeing body for all medical students and doctors, expects junior doctors to be able to do. And you have to prove that you can do them within those 2 years of training to pass. And once you've completed those 2 years, you can then go on to apply for specialty training. For me, who wants to go into paediatrics, that would be another 7 years of training to become a paediatric consultant on top of the 2 years of foundation school and 5 years of medical school and 1 year of biomedical sciences. And that is why people speak about medicine as being a vocation, because it really does require you to dedicate a large chunk of your life to training to get to that final step. And even then, once you're a consultant, you never stop learning. So it's almost 8:15. I've parked my car up a few minutes away from the hospital, and morning handover starts at 8:30 a.m. And something that I do, which some people might find a bit weird, is have my breakfast in the car before I go into hospital. And that's just because when I wake up at like 6:15 and I'm getting ready and everything else, it's just far too early for me to eat breakfast, and if I eat it at that time, then I'm just starving by the time it gets to lunchtime. So I just have my porridge, which is right here in this bowl. I heated that up at home. I'm gonna eat now and then make my way in. Once I've had my breakfast and done all my morning tasks, I will catch you guys at lunchtime and fill you in on what's happened during the day. So for obvious reasons, I can't film myself while I'm on the ward in hospital. So what I'm planning on doing is finding a spare room at lunchtime and catching you guys up with what I've done with my morning. All right, see you soon. So it's currently 3:30 p.m. and I'm just managing to get away from the ward and sit down to update you all. So in terms of what my day has looked like so far, in the morning we started with a handover. So this is where the night team kind of joins the day team, and we sit down and we go through all the patients on the ward. We talk about anything that's happened overnight, and it's a team discussion, so the nurses join us as well, and they can raise their concerns if they have any. We also discuss any new patients that would have been admitted overnight, and the night team can kind of share where they're at with managing these patients, and get the whole team up to speed. And then once we've done the morning handover, we go on a ward round, and different consultants do this in different ways. We have one consultant who is on call, who is on the ward each week. So this is when we as a team get to see the patients for the first time during the day. So all new patients, anyone who's come in overnight, has to be seen by a consultant. And then the older patients, different consultants have different ways of doing it. Sometimes the consultants like to see everyone, including all the older patients, or sometimes the registrars can take the lead, and the registrars are the most senior junior doctors, and they can lead the ward round for those patients. I as an F1 usually follow the consultant. Sometimes some SHOs come with me, or sometimes it's just me and the other FY1 who's actually off today. So it's just me and some SHOs following the consultant around, who saw all the patients. And the kind of things that happen on a general day is we'll see the patient, speak to the parents, because obviously I'm on paediatrics, so a lot of it is done through the parents. We discuss what's happened overnight, we discuss what the expectations are of the parent, we see the status of the child, and then we decide a management plan going forward.
So what are the things that need to happen during the day to make that patient better, and basically make a note of everything that happens, and we kind of go through it like that. At the end of the ward round, which usually takes a few hours, so roughly 3 to 4 hours, sometimes even longer, sometimes less, depending on how many patients we have. At the end of the ward round, we come back together as a team and we have a huddle. So this is kind of a debrief. So everyone is up to speed on all the patients on the ward again, and what's going on with them, and we discuss all the things that need to happen. So at that point, the consultant usually goes off to clinic, or sometimes they're on the ward, it just depends. But the rest of the team, the junior doctors, F1s, SHOs, registrars, start making that happen. And as an example, the kind of things that we are expected to do and the kind of things that I do. So if anyone needs imaging, so x-rays, ultrasounds, anything like that, I can order them on the system, talk to the relevant specialities to book those things. Referrals to different specialities again, if someone needs to see a physiotherapist or speech and language or dietitians, we're kind of calling them up, coming up with a plan, making sure that that plan happens. Bloods, of course, so if anyone needs cannulas or medication needs to be prescribed, all of that happens, and all of that goes on throughout the day. And of course, we also have a children's outpatient unit attached to the ward where we're assessing new patients. So these are patients that come up from A&E, some patients who are being referred from other specialities, midwives in the community, GPs. They're all coming through the observation unit side, and they need to be clocked. So that's where we sit down, we talk to the parents, talk to the child, assess them, come up with an initial management plan, a list of differential diagnoses, things that we think are working, things that we think might be wrong with that child. And so it's kind of split into two, and as an F1 I can kind of go in between, and that's basically what I spent my morning doing. At lunchtime we had some teaching, so that usually happens most lunchtimes actually in paediatrics, via Teams. So we kind of join virtually from the doctor's room and do some learning. Today it was on eating disorders, was very useful. So I was eating my lunch and watching that. I briefly went back onto the ward to help out with a few bits and jobs, and then I had some medical students come up to the ward, and I was helping teach them about gastrointestinal diseases, and talking to them about how to manage different diseases, how to investigate, how to examine, all the rest of it, and giving them feedback as well as trying to help them prepare for their examinations. So now what I'm going to do is go back onto the ward, see what else I can help out with before the end of my shift.
So my shift ended at 4:30 p.m. and I was lucky enough to catch this beautiful sunset as I left the hospital. One of the major perks of being on a speciality like paediatrics as an FY1 is that it's usually a supernumerary post. So I'm kind of like an extra doctor on the ward, and I'm not required to do any nights or weekends. So I've tried to make the most of this by leveling up my fitness, and I've taken up kickboxing and rock climbing, as well as going to the gym twice a week as well. So today was a kickboxing evening and I headed straight there after work. And here is a little montage of me in the session preparing for my yellow belt exam. I got home at 6:30 p.m. and jumped straight into the shower. I actually live with my family at home, which has been great on so many levels. One, it's nice to spend time with them, especially after 6 years of being away in med school. It also means I can save money for a house deposit instead of renting, and it also means I come home to a cooked meal every evening. So tonight my mum made a traditional Zambian meal, and having been at uni for so long, it's safe to say nothing beats food that is made by your own mum. After dinner with the family and relaxing with them, I spent the next hour and a bit working on my portfolio in preparation for a meeting with my clinical supervisor the next day. All foundation doctors have to keep a portfolio of all the skills and teaching, conferences, etc. that they do to prove their competencies, and it can be pretty time consuming. At 9:30 p.m. I decided to get off all screens and do a bit of reading before bed. I was a bit disappointed with myself because I hadn't managed to touch any of the content creation or podcast for social media, and I know it's something I've been slacking on majorly. And so now that I'm in a routine with my job and my social life, because it has been more difficult than anticipated finding my footing after leaving med school, I'm hoping that as I head into 2022, you'll be seeing a lot more regular podcasts and videos like this one. So it's 10 p.m, which is lights out for me. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe and let me know what you'd like to see in the future in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching.